welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel, we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the Gentleman's Magazine from January 1800. And this article is entitled Oxygen Gas, No New Discovery in Chemistry. So I'm assuming that this person believes that oxygen had been discovered previously to its announcement. That's possible. So Mr. Urban, Crew Cairn, January 14th. In the Duncade, a mention is made of the classics of an age that heard of none. Pope here alluded to an ignoramus, who accidentally meeting with an old edition of the Aeneid, and imagining he had recovered a work lost to the world, gave an account of it. Ignoramus, huh? Okay, obviously we've heard of Aeneid. I at least would like to think that most people have. Gave an account of it as a rare and delectable composition of a learned poet called Virgil, relating how after the destruction of Troy, Aeneas was driven, etc. I sometimes think we are now living amongst the chemists of an age who heard of none. Okay, don't make fun of people, come on. You can make that mistake, especially in an age where information wasn't readily available. It's not like you could just Google it. Just because somebody hadn't heard of something and assumed that it was new doesn't mean that they were stupid, it just means that they hadn't heard of it. That's mean. Witness the claim lately set up to the first discovery of oxygen gas, or vital air, which it seems must no longer be termed, dephlogisticated? I think that's what it says, air. It appears, however, that the learned and accomplished Dean of Wells, Dr. Bathurst, was no stranger to the properties of oxygen as a constituent part of the atmospheric air, and I shall presently prove. In fact, there is nothing new but the word, which is one of the very many new ones lately introduced to the perplexity of plain scholars. It is in vain, Mr. Urban, for your compositors to search Ainsworth for the words oxygen, azote, oxide, etc. The first, from the Greek compound, it should seem, implies the acid-making air. The second, from a the Latin words just throw me for a loop. Okay. For a privativa, the life-depriving air, and in respect to the last, the calces of metals are now termed their oxides, so that the rust of an old poker is denominated the oxide of iron. Oxidated, Our kind neighbors, the French, are so good as to supply us with these new technical terms, which are not quite so intelligible as... I'm going to regret making this, aren't I? Okay. Pluviose, ventos, germinal, etc. After this digression, I shall quote from the elegant and classical Dr. Bathurst's Prelectico Tertia de Inspiratione, some passages which will serve to convince your readers that, so long ago as the year 1654, this divine and physician knew what oxygen was, in which, as I have already observed, there is nothing new but the name. Okay, and then it quotes a whole bunch of Latin, which I am not going to put myself through the pain of trying to read it, because I don't speak Latin. Alright, I'm not going to pretend that I do. Alright, moving on. What does all this mean but that oxygen is imparted to the blood in the lungs in inspiration? The pretended new discovery. In another part of the Prelectio, the doctor expressly says, this nitrous spirit, or oxygen, non animalium modo, sed and platarum vita fit. Sit? Vita sit. And elsewhere, speaking of this pabulum nitrosum vel spiritus eris nitrophus, he maintains is to be the sine qua non of life, from which oh gosh, okay, I really need to learn Latin if I'm going to read these. Non hominis solum caricate animalia sed and impfe, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then goes on in a most elegantly saying something else in Latin. Virgil. Gosh. Nothing I have said will, I trust, be understood as in the least inimical to the late improvements of men, who, in the words of the Committee on the London College, blah, 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 something else in Latin, for by their labors the practice or physic is effectually benefited. My present purpose is to vindicate the claims of those who, most assuredly, about the middle of the 17th century were no strangers to doctrines which some pretend to claim the first discovery of towards the end of the 18th. J. Crane, M.D. Okay, I think it's a good idea for me to go back and try and find a translation of these Latin phrases that I refuse to read because I can't read them. Yes. Let's see. Where should I start? Alright, I'm going to start with Bathurst's book. Yeah, his book title. Okay, so the book is called The Third Lecture on Inspiration. I feel better already. Okay. Prelectio, I guess, is lecture, and then tertia is then the third, yeah? Okay. The Third Lecture on Inspiration. All right. So that's the book that Bathurst wrote. Why did he have to write in Latin? Okay. Don't complain about the past, Micah. Jeez. Okay. Decimas itaque. All right, this is longer than it looks. Okay, the first sentence, according to Google Translate, is, we say, therefore, that inspiration serves chiefly to supply the animal with a nitrified light, by which the blood is so moderated that it may be fit for the spirits to generate the departed life forms. Okay, I can see what they mean. Like, yeah, it sounds like they did kind of understand that the blood supplied oxygen, yeah? It supplied some sort of air. Nitrified light. I'm guessing, like, nitrate? Yeah? But that's air, yeah? So I understand that. Cool. That's really cool. All right. Next sentence. Okay, I don't know if this really, contributes to their argument. So here's the next sentence. It says, for the blood requires a certain liquid juice to be continuously supplied through food, without which the blood does not nourish. Okay, yeah, okay. Anger as in the air, which could be a bad translation, it probably is, which indeed is of a different kind, and failing this respiration contributes nothing to life. So much so that living, etc., the aura of the Vessi sounds the same as that of the poet. I don't get that last part, but it does say that something about the air. I think that the anger part is a bad translation. My bad. I might have mistyped something. I might have misread it. It's a little bit hard to read. So, which indeed is of a different kind, and failing this respiration contributes nothing to life, so that you can't continue living if you stop breathing. Well, I think that just by observation, people have known that a very, 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 very long time. Like, you can't breathe, you die. Yeah? Yeah. But saying that they thought they knew of the compound of oxygen because of this doesn't make sense. Now, they did understand that blood took the whatever it is you breathed in and brought it to the rest of the body, but I don't know that they knew of the element oxygen, and that's what had been discovered. And so I don't know. I feel like they're reaching a little bit. Yeah. Okay, what does all this mean? But that oxygen is imparted to the blood in the lungs in inspiration. Inspiration meaning breathing in, yeah? Yeah. Because breathing in and out is respiration. Yeah? And then expiration is breathing out. I hope that makes sense. the pretended new discovery. And another part of the Prelectio, the doctor expressly says this nitrous spirit or oxygen. Okay, and then let's try to figure out what the rest of the sentence says for those non-Latin speakers as me. So non. Oh wait. It means let there be life, not only of animals but also of plants. Okay, let me reread that sentence. In another part of the Prelectio, the doctor expressly says this nitrous spirit or oxygen, let there be life, not only of animals but also of plants. I don't get it. So that's fine. Like, they understood. No, but because that's wrong. Yeah, because oxygen is not what plants need to survive. That's what plants give off. So that's what animals need to survive, not plants. So I think that claiming that this is a discovery of oxygen is incorrect, because it's what plants give off, not what plants need. So, like, I think it's a stretch. This is a stretch of saying that they knew something was there. They knew there was something in the air that needs to be transported by the blood in order to keep you alive. That's pretty clever, actually, considering how little knowledge they really had back then. But saying that they knew about oxygen is a stretch. Yeah, it's a stretch. All right, let's do the next sentence. And elsewhere, speaking of this, okay, it says nitrous fodder or nitrous spirit of air. Yeah, he maintains it to be the... Okay, sine qua non means without which not. That's great. So, without which you can't live, I guess, of life. From which, jeez, the Latin just really gets me down here. Okay. I misspelled something, and it's instead of translating it as people, which is homines, they translated it as melons, himines. Like, my bad. Okay. Yep, that happens when you have a typo. Okay, so this says, not only men and animals, but even the plants themselves seem to become vegetarian and revive. That's weird. And then goes on in most elegantly saying, oh gosh, okay. Alright, so that first paragraph is supposedly, according to Google Translate, if I typed it correctly, says, the spirit, as it first nestles in the earth, so sublimates from thence into the surrounding air and water, and vice versa through the air of the water, and the water, I'm assuming, and through both is a communicator of the earth, and thus by a kind of circulation it is diffused through all things, and like the Platonic soul of the lower world. I don't get it. By a kind of circulation. But, like, they're not talking about blood. They're talking about, like, everything. It's very, very philosophical. Okay, let's look at that last sentence, yeah? Alright, that last sentence says, it stirs up the whole mass and mixes itself with the great body. Virgil. I still don't see what that has to do with oxygen. Because it doesn't only say that we are made up of air, but we're also made up of water. Like, that's kind of obvious. I feel like anybody who has had to use the bathroom knows that we have a lot of water in us. It's a stretch. Still, I still am not convinced that that's what it means. Okay. So, nothing I have said will, I trust, be understood as in the least inimical to the late improvements of men who, in the words of the Committee of the College of London... Okay, so according to the College of London, it says, in recent years they have set out with more earnest interest to develop a deeper and more precise chemistry, which makes sense in context, yeah. For by their labors the practice of physic is essentially benefited. My present purpose is to vindicate the claims of those who, most assuredly, about the middle of the 17th century, were no strangers to doctrines which some pretend to claim the first discovery of towards the end of the 18th. Yeah, but I'm sorry, but I am absolutely not convinced that those passages that he cited are referring to oxygen. That is not clear to me, and I don't think that most people think that it was clear either. Otherwise, they would have given them the credit, for discovering oxygen. But, yeah, to me, it just says there's something going on. There's something in the air that must be essential to life, since people can't live without breathing, and that the blood must carry it, because it seems to die without the blood flowing properly. And yeah, we don't know what it is, but it is being carried. They call that a nitrate. Nitrate is a very neutral term, but at the same time, like, they knew it was air. They knew it was a gas. I don't think they knew it was oxygen specifically. And then also claiming that plants also need it. Yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm sorry, dude. J. Crane, MD, I'm sure you're a wonderful doctor, or were, since this was 1800. But at the same time, I don't think that I think you're overreaching. You're overstepping a little bit. I think you don't like, it sounds like some sort of personal vendetta. Like, you don't like, or you are upset by the people who did discover oxygen and are claiming that it had been discovered by Virgil or previous to that, or Bathurst. I disagree. I think that they discovered there was something. I don't think that they discovered oxygen. So now, just to fact check myself, let's look it up. Who discovered oxygen? Joseph Priestley, discoverer of oxygen. So this is asc.org, Chemistry for Life. When Joseph Priestley discovered oxygen in 1774, he answered age-old questions of why and how things burn. An Englishman by birth, Priestley was deeply involved in politics and religion as well as science. When his vocal support for the American and French revolutions made remaining in his homeland dangerous, Priestley left England in 1794 and continued his work in America until his death. There you go. All right, well, that explains why this person knew him. He may have even known him personally. Okay, so the world recalls Priestley best as the man who discovered oxygen, the active ingredient in our planet's atmosphere. In the process, he helped dethrone an idea that dominated science for 23 uninterrupted centuries. Few concepts have laid firmer hold upon the mind, he wrote, than that air is a simple elementary substance, indestructible and unalterable. I don't know why they thought that. I mean, you can see gases of all sorts of different things. I mean, look at a volcano, or like even fire, like it has smoke. Like, I don't understand why people thought that. That's weird. In a series of experiments culminating in 1774, Priestley found that air is not an elementary substance, but a composition or mixture of gases. Among them was the colorless and highly reactive gas he called dephlogisticated. Gosh, that's such a weird word. Dephlogisticated. Logisticated. Okay, dephlogisticated. Like, they did mention that word in here. Yeah, I had a hard time reading it. To which the French chemist Antoine Lavoisier would soon give the name oxygen. Okay. It is hard to overstate the importance of Priestley's revelation. Scientists now recognize 92 naturally occurring elements, including nitrogen and oxygen, the main components of air. They comprise 78 and 21% of the atmosphere, respectively. But that still doesn't add up to 100, yeah? That adds up to 99. So there's 1% of gases that are in the air that are not nitrogen and oxygen. Yeah. That is interesting, but I think that I still, like, even today, if we look it up, he was hailed as the discoverer of oxygen. So I think that this person, J. Crane, MD, was overstepping. Like I said, he was reaching for, people before that knew there was something in the air. But as Priestley said, he said that everybody thought that air was like a single element and it couldn't be changed. But there's nothing in the argument that he gave that Dr. Crane gave that made me think that that wasn't the case from Bathurst and Virgil. I just feel like Priestley discovered that it is one of several elements that are in the air that we breathe in, yeah? And it's just the one that we need the most. So I don't agree at all with Dr. Crane saying that this is evidence that oxygen was known about beforehand. It was just that they knew there was something in the air. So I still say, Priestley, Dr. Priestley, congratulations on your discovery. And I am very happy that you discovered it, because it certainly made our lives better. I mean, when you think about all that oxygen brings to us today, that we are able to put it into liquid form and carry it around in like containers that allow us to breathe it in more purely, so that we can bring our saturations up so that we don't get brain damage, things like that. You know, I mean, we definitely have benefited from the discovery of oxygen. So thank you, Dr. Priestley. I appreciate your opinion, Dr. Crane, but I do not agree with you. So, all right. I hope you enjoyed this Microfiche time capsule. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And thank you for hanging out with me and wading through the Latin, since I don't speak it. But I feel like the translations seem to be relatively good. I mean, they're relatively like normal looking sentences, and that's why I think that they're pretty good. Anyway, let me know if you speak Latin. Was there any mistakes that I made in the translation? Because I would love to hear what you would translate them as instead. So thank you for joining us, and please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.